Hello everybody, welcome back. We are continuing our look through the Scream franchise with Scream 4 before I go see the new Scream. And before I get started on my notes, can we just rant about titles for a minute? Because I don't know when we got to this phase of putting the letter in the title of the movie. Obviously, things like Fantastic Four, which people call Fanforstic, has done this also, so this is not the only one. I can't think of others off the top of my head, but I know that it's a thing, and fine. Everyone I know, I was gonna say everyone I know just calls this Scream 4, but I literally don't think I've ever heard anyone talk about this movie, so maybe people call it SCRE4M. I think I heard one reviewer on YouTube call it SCRE4M before trying to be silly, but fine. I can just call that Scream 4. But now the new one is just called Scream again. Halloween did it. This is doing it. Fast and Furious has kind of done it. And I defended it with those movies because that's a convoluted... But, this is simple. It's just 5. Just call it Scream 5. I don't know if it would have been better or worse if the S in Scream would have been a 5. Right? Because it's like a similar shape. So, I don't know. What would people have called it? 5 Cream? Of cream? It's just weird. Just call your movie what it is. So we're talking about SCRE4M or Scream 4. My first note is that there's a Saw reference, which then is later not that surprising because we have an actor from Saw in the movie. But I'm a big fan of the Saw movies. They're all right up there. So that was exciting for me because I didn't remember. I had only seen this movie once, I think. I think I saw it when it came out, or maybe when it came out on DVD. I don't think I saw it in theaters. But when it came out on DVD, I bought it, watched it once, and that's it. Pretty much all I remembered was Hayden Panettiere. Because between Heroes and Nashville, which were both big things that I was into in the past, she kind of stuck out to me. There's a lot about this movie that I had forgotten. Okay, what are we at? Landlines in 2011. So at this point in the franchise, we've gone from cell phones are uncommon, it's suspicious for someone to have one, to them being more common. And now, Scream 4, 2011, I was out of high school by then. Landlines were on the way down. I know some people still have landlines, but I forget Hayden Panettiere's name. Did I write it down? Of course I didn't write it down. That would have been useful. Why didn't I do that? Is it Kirby? Is her name Kirby? Anyway, she's got a landline. I'm like, who's still using landlines in these movies? Come on. We gotta pick up the pace. I wrote still immediately. Oh, I don't know why I'm talking about Kirby. This is still in the beginning of the movie. So, I wrote still immediately killing the first two characters. And then, of course, it's a fake out, and it's Stab 6, right? It's another movie within a movie. So, okay, fine. We get a fake out. Then we get Anna Paquin and Kirsten Bell, Anna. We get Rogue and Anna. And then fake out again. It's actually Stab 7. So the beginning of Stab 7 is them watching Stab 6. They literally have a line about it in this movie, about how dumb that is. And so then I wrote down, lampshading is not good writing. And then I wrote, trying too hard to out-meta themselves. And it's just just be clever. Don't feel the need to try and outdo for the sake of outdoing. If it's not clever, don't do it. So right away, this movie had a poor taste in my mouth. That's not how that phrase is used. The phrase is used, left a poor taste in my mouth, as in at the end, a bad aftertaste, not at the beginning. I'm out of it right now. I'm sorry. Right away, this movie started off on the wrong foot. That's a more appropriate saying. The wrong foot for me, because it's just this, and it doesn't last long. It doesn't ruin the movie on its own. It just starts me in a bad mood. I'm like, again? We did this already. And now you literally do it twice in a row and then have your characters talk about how stupid it is. Let's move on. Then I just started writing down actresses. Just like in Scream 3, there were people that I had forgotten were in this. Alison Brie, who I didn't even know at the time, but now as a huge BoJack Horseman fan and someone who has watched all of Community, that's now an interesting factor to me. Obviously Hayden Panettiere, I already mentioned. Emma Roberts, not a huge fan of her in particular, but like, I don't remember where she was at in her Scream Queen career at this point, but now she's pretty well known for horror stuff. I've seen some seasons of American Horror Story. So it's this is gonna sound stupid, but I hope you understand what I mean with this sentence. But it's almost like the Scream franchise is the SNL of the horror genre. In that SNL has a lot of up-and-coming stars that then go on to do bigger and better things. That kind of is what this felt like to me. But I don't remember at what point in their careers these people were at. Obviously, Hayden Panettiere and Alison Brie and Kristen Bell have not like made names for themselves as horror actresses. Anna Paquin was in one of those TV shows, right? About werewolves. True Blood. Is that it? I don't know. I never watched any of those. Anyway, it's just interesting to see people that now I understand at this point in their career that I didn't have a grasp on even not that long ago. 2011. Oh gosh. Was that 11 years ago? Did this movie come out 11 years ago? Did I write that down right? Hold on. Just confirm this movie came out in 2011. That was 11 years ago. I feel like it's not that old. I gotta move on. Okay, so we got the fake outs. And then I just started... Okay, so I wrote... we've got that it's always on the anniversary. Again, we're doing the same things we do every movie, which sometimes seems like it's an important part of the plot, and then other times not really. So then I just started writing down who the killers were. And I was, like I said, when I was watching this, I had only seen it once before, but I was pretty sure that it was a cousin that had not yet been mentioned. I couldn't remember for sure, A, who the cousin was, although we find that out pretty quickly. And then B, I didn't remember that she was the killer. I knew she was involved, but I thought it was more of like they're targeting the cousin now, which I think they do a little bit of. Again, I've watched this movie. It's been a couple weeks since when I watched and wrote down my notes to now, so I don't remember everything super fresh. But I definitely didn't 100% for sure remember that she was the killer. But still, I wrote down the list of killers: mother, boyfriend's mother, secret brother, as yet unmentioned cousin. So maybe I remembered it earlier while viewing this than I thought I did. But it's just like, it gets progressively further out and further out. And I just realized that that's not a list of killers because her mother was not a killer. But it's a list of reasons for the plot to be happening. So first was her mother, and then it was based on her boyfriend's mother, and then her secret brother being upset. And so that's, okay, that makes sense now why I mentioned the cousin before I remembered that she was the killer, because these aren't killers, these are just the people that set the plots in motions. And similar to what I was talking about in the third film, they're just reaching really far, which I'm going to come back to, unless I forget. Then I wrote, just what the classic franchise needed. More high school teen romance nonsense. So instead of focusing on Sidney Prescott, we focus on the younger teenage characters. And it's just like, why? This franchise has grown up and evolved. And the fans of this franchise have grown up and evolved. And we got our teen romance drama nonsense in the first movie. And then we moved on. And there was a bit of it in college in the second movie. And then we moved on again. And then the third movie, there was none of that. So why are we backtracking? Are they like, I don't know, maybe they're trying to get new fans into the franchise. Maybe that's why they titled it this way rather than just a straightforward Scream 4. And maybe that's why there's such a heavy focus on new characters rather than the few returning characters. But it just seems like, why would you think that would work? How many horror franchises have had an established timeline, an established fan base, an established canon, and then tried to do this soft reboot and gotten a new huge fan base? How many times has that happened? I can't think of any examples. Maybe Alien, but those newer films are so different, in my understanding. I haven't seen any of them because neither set has brought me on board. But like, why do people think that this new fan base is going to suddenly come out of nowhere? I don't understand. Literally someone says the line to Sidney Prescott, "You're not the star anymore." And I wrote down, "But she should be." Like, that's my biggest problem with this movie, is that it focuses on the wrong people. I wrote down bad effects are bad. I don't remember what that was for, so I won't spend any more time on it. We get more lamb shading. And then, as I mentioned in my video for the third film, I wrote, man, Dewey's aim got worse. Because in the third film, there's a scene where he's up on a hill, like during a chase, and he sees the killer a ways away and takes a shot and nails it. Like, and the killer's standing in front of a car, and like the car doesn't get hit, so none of his shots miss. Dead shot, great accuracy. And then this film, when they're in the barn and the killer's up on the loft, he can't hit him for nothing. Poor Dewey. We get this line, I forget who it's from, but the quote is, "Who knew Maureen Prescott better than her own daughter?" And it makes no sense. I forget who says it, and I forget the context of it, but like, clearly Sydney had no idea about her mom's secret life in Hollywood or wherever this is. And clearly Sydney couldn't even come to terms with her mother's actions during Sydney's own life and leading up to her mother's death and leading up to the original Woodsboro murders. Sydney has probably the least realistic grasp on who her mother was, not the most. So whoever is saying this is about as wrong as you could possibly be. Then I wrote ahead of the curve with filming everything. GoPros, dash cams, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, YouTube. So one of the characters in this film, I forget his name, but it's the actor that plays the son from Saw 2. He's got this side camera that he uses to constantly live stream everything. And it comes off as dorky and quirky in the movie. And certainly that's not how people do it nowadays. But again, just like the voice changer in the third film, that was right. People do that now. People film everything. People record and post everything. People live chat all the time. People, like, everything is documented. Not in that fashion, not in the way that he does it, but like that idea of like kids' entire lives being documented. This movie nailed it again. Okay, then I wrote, listing as many films as possible is not clever. So when Kirby is on the phone trying to guess the answer to the question that the killer is asking her, she just lists a couple dozen horror movies. And I'm like, do you think these are references? No. In the first movie, when we mention Friday the 13th, and we bring up the fact that in the original movie, Jason wasn't the killer yet. It was his mother, Mrs. Voorhees. And then that comes into play in the second movie, where the killer is Billy Loomis's mother. Like, that's a reference. That's interesting. That's clever. That's unique. That I appreciate. Just listing as many movies as you possibly can. A, is not anywhere near the same, but B, they already did that earlier in the movie when the two kids are talking about horror movies back and forth to each other. And in that context, it at least kind of makes sense that they're talking, they're trying to one each other up. But in this context, you're answering a question supposedly to determine whether you live or die. Do you think that just saying every possible answer is going to get you to win that game? No. So why would you... It's bad. That's stupid. At some point I wrote no follow-up on the voice tech. I mentioned that in my video on the third film. While that voice changer technology is stuff that continues to exist and be more prominent, they didn't really follow up on that at all, which was kind of weird. I wrote, why not kill Sydney? I don't remember what point in the movie that was at. It's on the bottom line, so it must be near the end. I think it's as Emma Roberts' character is explaining the whole thing to her. It's just, classic villain monologue. Why? You're planning to kill her later. Why are you explaining all of this to her? It doesn't matter. Just kill her. She doesn't. She fails. She, whatever. Then I wrote down wanting to be famous for being famous. Again, I don't think that was a huge thing in 2011. I was almost done with college. I'm trying to remember how the internet was then. I was almost done with college, so things like Twitter were more of a deal then, but not nearly as much as it is now, where you can just film yourself in your house and get thousands of followers and then become a millionaire. And that's what the cousin wanted in this movie, is to be famous for being famous. Okay, then my last note, I think it's Dewey is talking to the cousin in the hospital, and he says that Sydney is pretty touch and go, and it's unclear whether she's going to survive or not. And then the cousin goes to attack her, and Sydney fights back, and I just wrote, seems pretty go. And it's just again, why put that line in there if you're immediately going to contradict it? If Sydney was touch and go, she should absolutely not be able to defend herself. If you want to have a big fight, then just say, oh, she's still resting, but she's going to be okay. Why say touch and go? Because then you immediately counter that. Not a fan of the fourth one. It makes me like the third one more. And so that makes me really nervous for this fifth one, because I think the second one was the last really good one. The third one continued on, so it's fine. This one tried to be too much different, and I don't like it as much. And so I'm trying to, not theorize, but, I'm wondering to myself, is this going to be a continuation of what they were doing in this? Or are they going to try to go back to form and do something better? I'm hopeful, cautiously optimistic that it's going to be the latter. For one, being a sequel to this would be weird because it's 11 years later. So I do feel like they learned the lesson. I know they did a series for a couple seasons, but I think it was between this and now. I haven't watched them, but I don't think they're related to the main storyline. But I feel like the IP has kind of just been floating for a while. I think they realized that this didn't do what they wanted it to do. And so I'm hopeful that we go back and do things more similar to the original. The fact that, from what I remember of the trailers, we do focus on Sydney and Dewey and Gail, which I think are the only still remaining characters. Is her dad still alive? Her dad might still be alive. I'd be surprised if he was in the movie, though. But I'm hoping it's more like the old ones, but I don't want it to just be redoing stuff that they've already done before. I don't want them to just be listing things and acting like those are references. So I'm excited for the new movie. I'm hopeful for the new movie, but I don't have very high expectations of the new movie. I think that makes sense to put it that way. But I'm hopeful, and I hope it does well, because this series, even the movies that I don't like, they do clever things that I find interesting. And already for the fifth one, even though I haven't seen it, in the trailer, we get this concept of this smart house, right? And she's trying to lock all the doors, but the killer has access, and so he's unlocking all the... And, like, that's interesting, right? And what's going to happen when you can control all the lights in your house from your phone, right? Can you use that to cause a distraction? Or can the killer, you know, turn that on its side and flip it around? I'm glad that I don't know how many killers there are going to be. Most of the time there's 2, but in 3 there was only 1. So that's going to help with the mystery part of it as I'm watching it. I don't know if I expect it to still be related to Sydney's family. I'm really hoping not, because I feel like it would be really, really stretching it. I almost hope that it's just a real-life fan that wants to recreate it. We've had a bit of that in these movies. I think the guy that Billy Loomis's mom was working with in the second one, she said she, like, found him online. And her cousin just kind of, like, worked with this geeky guy that liked horror movies because he was into that. But rather than being pawns of someone closely related to Sydney, I do hope, I don't hope, but I think that a killer who's just motivated by that and nothing else at this point in the franchise is going to make more sense. I'm not saying that there's not a better third option that I'm not thinking of, but between those two, I would rather have someone who's interested in it for some other reason than just that he's distantly, secretly related to Sidney Prescott. We're probably going to get someone die, right? A main character has died. Well, now I'm wondering. Obviously, main characters die in the first one. Randy dies in the second one. Do any main legacy characters die in 3 or 4? They do fake outs with Dewey and Gale. But I think it's basically been those 3. And the dad. But the dad's kind of weird. I don't know. I might have to go back and look at that before I go see the 5th one. And then I can wonder. Because I feel like a legacy character is going to die in this. I just don't know which one. If I had to guess, probably Courtney Cox. Because she probably doesn't want to keep doing this. But I don't know. I'm ranting now, so I'm going to stop this. Those are my thoughts on Scream 4. Let me know what you thought. But that's everything that I have to say. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.